welcome back to the Strong Girl Squad podcast. Today's episode, it was actually just going to be a video for my clients, but then I thought, well, why not? Why not turn it into a podcast slash YouTube video that everybody can benefit from? Because we're going to talk about food tracking, and I know that phrase immediately makes some of you want to literally close the app. Maybe you've tracked before and it turned into a bit of an obsession. Maybe it feels too time consuming, or maybe you've heard me say on Instagram that I don't believe in rigid meal plans, so you're confused about why I'm even bringing this up. So this is where I am coming from. I am not asking you to track forever. I am not asking you to be perfect. I am absolutely not asking you to obsess over every single crumb. What I am saying is that if your body has stopped responding to what you're doing and you don't have any real data about what you're actually eating, then we are essentially trying to solve a problem in the dark. Tracking, even imperfectly, even temporarily, will give us a picture, and that picture is usually very revealing. So today I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know to get started with tracking, which apps to use, how to log your food in a way that actually works, we all know how busy everyone is. My personal tips for making it a bit of a less of a nightmare. I have now been tracking my food for about 10 years. So it's, very normal for me now. And why imperfect action is absolutely the goal. So let's get into it. Before I get into the how, though, I want to briefly explain the why, because I do think that matters, especially for women in perimenopause, because one of the most consistent things I see with new clients is that they genuinely believe they eat well. And they do, broadly speaking, but when we actually look at the data, there are almost always gaps that they weren't aware of. And it's not because they were lying to themselves or to me, but it's because human beings are generally quite terrible at estimating portion sizes. Research consistently shows that we underestimate how much we eat and overestimate how much we move. It's just the way it goes. If you then add perimenopause into that picture and declining estrogen, your declining estrogen affects your insulin sensitivity, which changes how your body processes carbohydrates and stores fat. It affects hunger hormones, specifically your ghrelin and leptin, which means that the signals your body sends about hunger and fullness become less reliable than they used to be. And it affects where your body preferentially stores fat, which is why so many women suddenly find it accumulating around the middle, even when nothing else seems to have changed. And what all of this means is that you can't always trust how you feel as accurate data anymore. You might feel like you haven't eaten much when actually you've consumed more than you realise. You might feel like you're eating enough protein when actually you're consistently falling short. So tracking isn't about control or restriction, it's about getting an honest picture of what's actually going on and going in so that we can make informed decisions about what to adjust. I guess an analogy could be like, you wouldn't try to manage your business finances without looking at the numbers. Tracking your nutrition is the same principle. It is data, not a diet. So usually the first question that I get asked is apps. So which app? Which app should I use? And there are several good options. So I just want to give you a quick overview so that you can pick one that suits you. MyFitnessPal. This is probably the most widely used tracking app in the world. And there is a reason for that. It has the largest food database. It is user-friendly and most people have at least heard of it. The free version is perfectly functional for basic tracking. The premium version adds features like macro goal setting and more detailed analysis. But yeah, the basic one is a solid starting point, especially if you're new to tracking. Cronometer. So I personally haven't used this, but I do have a fair amount of clients that do. And it goes a little bit more detail on micronutrients. So whilst most apps focus on calories and macros, which is protein, carbs and fats, Cronometer, I think that's how you say it, goes deeper and also tracks vitamins and minerals. So if you want to understand whether you're getting enough magnesium, vitamin D, iron, calcium, all of which matter a lot in perimenopause, then Cronometer is excellent. It's slightly more detailed, which some people love and some people find a little bit overwhelming at first. Then you've got NutriCheck, which I used to use. This is a UK-based app and one that I really rate. I like it as well because it's got pictures, so it's very visually appealing. The database is specifically built around UK food products and supermarket brands, so you're not endlessly searching for Tesco's own brand items or trying to figure out which version of food is closest to what you actually ate. So yeah, NutriCheck is genuinely very, very good. Macrofactor. So this is the one that I personally use. It's a little bit more sophisticated. What sets it apart is that it can actually learn your metabolism over time. If you are adding everything that you eat and your weight, it will work things out for you. So it can almost coach you. Most apps will give you a static number based on a formula, whereas Macrofactor analyzes your actual intake and weight data to estimate what your metabolism is really doing. So it is particularly useful if you've been tracking for a while and want more personalized data. It is a paid app, but in my opinion, it is worth it. And then for my clients who use Everfit for their coaching app, their training, it can also be used to track your nutrition, which is built in. I'm not sure exactly how in-depth the database is, but for ease of use, if you're already using Everfit for your training, it's potentially worth exploring the nutrition side on there too. But the bottom line is they all work, and the best app is the one that you will actually use. So start with what feels most accessible to you. And then before I get into the practical tips, I would like to spend a minute on like imperfect action, because this is probably the most important mindset piece when it comes to tracking your food. Every single number in food tracking is an estimate. The calorie count on the packaging is an estimate. Food labeling laws allow a margin of error up to 20%. The calorie counts in the app databases vary because different people have entered the data at different times. The number of calories you personally burn is an estimation based on population averages. It is not a measurement of you specifically. And even the scientists who study this stuff acknowledge that tracking can't be perfect. It is not perfectly accurate, and that's fine because we're not aiming for precision. We are aiming for a consistent, honest picture. So what that means in practice is I would rather you track imperfectly every day than track perfectly for 3 days and then give up because it's too hard. Consistency matters far more than accuracy, and an 80% accurate picture tracked every day is infinitely more useful than a 100% accurate picture tracked sporadically. So as we go through these tips, I do want you to hold on to that, because you are not doing it wrong if it's not perfect. You are doing it right if you are doing it. Okay, so these are the tips, the practical tips that I wish someone had told me when I started tracking, and the things that I help my clients with now. So tip number 1, weighing food raw, not cooked, where possible. So this one trips a lot of people up. When you cook food, especially things like chicken, rice or pasta, the weight will change. Chicken loses water when it cooks and gets lighter. Rice, pasta absorb water and get heavier. The calories in the food haven't changed, but the weight has. The database entries in tracking apps are usually logged as raw weight because that's the consistent measurable form. So if your app says chicken breast raw, that is what you want to weigh before you cook it. Same with oats, rice, pasta, weigh them dry before they go in the pot. There are usually cooked entries in the databases too, so you can search for those if it is genuinely easier. But what I normally say is pick one approach and stay consistent. Tip number 2, keep the jar on the scales, especially if you are a spoon licker. If you are tracking something that you are taking from a jar or a tub, like peanut butter, hummus, yogurt, that kind of thing, put the whole jar on the scales, zero the scales, then take out what you're using. The weight that disappears from the jar is what you've taken. And it sounds really obvious, but it's actually much easier than trying to scrape peanut butter into a separate bowl and weigh it. So keep the jar on the scales. It's so much simpler. It's so much quicker. It's so much more accurate. And then if you do lick the spoon, it's what you've licked is accounted for because you know it's been weighed and taken out. Tip number 3 is for eating out. Just estimate it, because this is where a lot of people will fall down. They will track brilliantly Monday to Friday, and then the weekend comes, they eat out and they just stop tracking. But most restaurants and cafes, or chains at least, now have their nutritional information available either in the app database or on the website. So search for the restaurant name and the dish, and you'd be surprised how often it is already there if you are at a chain. If it's not, if you're an independent restaurant or eating something that you can't find the closest equivalent. If you've had a chicken pasta dish, find a chicken pasta in the database that sounds similar and use that. Is it perfectly accurate? No. Is it better than logging nothing? Absolutely yes. Same as if you go out for a chicken roast dinner. You could potentially break that dinner down and kind of log, okay, I had 200 grams chicken breast, however many meals of gravy, do you know what I mean? Like, you could do it like that, or you could just go on Harvester search Harvester roast dinner, or, Wetherspoons roast dinner, roast chicken. The goal is to maintain the habit of the tracking and keeping the overall picture as complete as possible, even when life isn't convenient. Track number 4, again, if you're out, it's one of my favourite practical tips. If you are out for lunch, at a work event, or eating something and you just don't have the bandwidth to log it right there and then, take a photo on your phone, because then you can come back to it later in the day and log it then. Because a photo jogs your memory far better than trying to remember what you ate 6 hours ago. It takes 2 seconds to take, and it means that you're not going to leave big gaps in your log because lifed. Alcohol. I'm not going to tell you not to drink. That is not what this is about. But alcohol does have calories. And if you're not logging it, you're potentially missing a significant chunk of your intake. Wine, beer, spirits, they're all in the database. Log them. That's it. No judgment attached to it, just data. A glass of wine is approximately 130 to 150 calories. A pint of beer is 180 to 220, depending on the strength. Log it, move on. Don't let it spiral you. Tip number 6. I don't track salad or vegetables, but I do track fruit. This is my personal approach, and I do teach it to my clients too. So non-starchy vegetables, your leafy greens, your cucumber, your peppers, your courgette, your broccoli, spinach, tomatoes, they are so low in calories that tracking them is largely unnecessary and will add friction for very little benefit. No one ever got fat eating too much veg or salad. If you're eating a big salad or a load of roasted veg with your dinner, I'm not asking you to weigh every leaf. Don't bother. Do track any oils that your veg is cooked in and any dressings. Fruit is different. Fruit does contain a meaningful amount of natural sugar and carbohydrates. So if you are eating a lot of fruit, like several pieces a day, it is worth logging. 2 bananas, a large bowl of grapes, a smoothie, they add up to a significant number of carbohydrates and calories. So I'm not saying don't eat fruit. I absolutely love fruit, but do track it. Another tip would be log before you eat, not after. This is a very small habit shift, but it actually makes a really big difference, because if you log your food before you eat it, you can see in real time what impact it's having on your day's total and make adjustments if you need. If you log after, you're just doing the retrospective admin and you can't do much about it. Even if you're planning ahead the night before, log what you intend to eat tomorrow. That is going to be so incredibly useful, and you can change it obviously, but it is the difference between reacting and planning. The next tip is about protein. So when you open your tracking app at the start of the day, don't just look at calories, look at your protein target and work backwards from that. Protein is the most important macro for muscle retention and fat loss, so especially in perimenopause. I've done a whole video on protein in the nutrition course, so please do watch that. But most women are consistently under eating it without realizing. If you know you need, say, 130 to 140 grams of protein today, and you can see by lunchtime that you've only had 40, that is really useful information. You can then make a plan for the rest of the day, but without the data, you've got no idea. And then something that I really kind of hammer home with you all is don't aim to hit exact numbers, aim for a range. And this is something that my clients will know that I do. It reduces the obsessive quality that tracking can sometimes take on. So instead of specific calorie target, say 1800 calories, I work with ranges. So you're aiming for 1700 to 1850. Any day that you land in that range is a successful day, because then you're not chasing a precise number, you are managing within a zone. Again, I've got a whole video on this. Same with protein. If your target is around 130 grams, anywhere between 120 and 145 is a win. It takes the pressure off that perfection and makes the whole thing far more sustainable. And then I think the last tip is don't let one bad day derail you, because you're going to have these days. You're going to have days where you don't track, where you do go significantly over when you do, you do track, but you go significantly over, where life just happened and, potentially the app went untouched, and that's fine. That's normal. What matters is how you react to that and what you do the next day. So one untracked day doesn't make the data useless. It is just one data point. So pick it back up tomorrow, open the app, keep going, and don't overthink it. I guess I want to close with food tracking is a tool. It's not a lifestyle. I'm not asking you to track forever. What I am asking is that you do it consistently enough to build real awareness of what you're eating and what your protein intake looks like and where the gaps may be. For most of my clients, after a few months of tracking, they develop an intuitive sense that they just did not have before. They don't need to weigh everything forever. They've built a mental model of what a portion of protein looks like, what a balanced meal looks like, where calories tend to come from without them noticing. And that is the goal. So it's about educating yourself, helping yourself become aware, having a better understanding of your body and how to fuel it. And particularly in perimenopause, when your old rules don't apply anymore, when your hunger signals are less reliable, when your metabolism is shifting, having that data is genuinely so powerful. You have spent years doing everything right by the old rule book, and tracking is one of the ways that we write a new one that actually works for your body now. So that is today's episode. I hope it has felt manageable, helped you think that food tracking is manageable rather than overwhelming, because genuinely it is. So start with one app, log imperfectly, build the habit, and you can worry about precision later. If you're already a client and you want to talk through your tracking setup or what targets you should be working towards, and you're unsure, or you first started with me and said you didn't want to track, so I haven't given you targets, and now you do, bring it to your next check-in. If you are not a client yet and you have listened to this thinking this is exactly the kind of practical, no nonsense, no bullshit approach that I've been looking for, just message me. I would love to hear from you. See you all soon. Bye.